Hey guys, today we're going to be taking a look at my updated Simochi deck, uh, anti-heal, Nurse Reficule, whatever you want to call it. Basically, it's a burn deck that revolves around kind of life point gain that turns into life point damage. Can be a very annoying deck to deal with. I know a lot of people aren't as big of a fan of burn decks, but I've had this deck for a long time, and I have wanted to update it for a while to kind of do some new things. It really hasn't changed much. There isn't much in terms of evolving this deck type. It's a lot of the same cards, but there is some new stuff and there's a lot of interesting stuff that you could try to do with it. And there are a few different interesting ways to build it that kind of change up how it's trying to go. So to start things off, we're going to be running 2 Cardcar D. Pretty free in this deck to just throw this out to gain those cards. Pretty important because we need very specific cards as fast as possible. 1 Kuribon. This is a more situational card. It can be really annoying for your opponent to deal with. They won't want to attack it because obviously you can set up things really nicely for you. So it's sort of a stall card, but obviously there's a lot of ways to deal with it. So your opponent's going to have to think about it, but they might just find another way to just deal with it pretty easily. Running 2 Lava Golem. Lava Golem is nice in a burn deck to get rid of our opponent's cards. We're not going to be summoning a lot, so it's easy to throw out. Does additional burn damage and combos well with some of the other stuff we want to do here. 2 Mystic Tomato, giving us some little more consistency to get out Nurse, which is obviously a big component. Nurse obviously is just the same as Simochi. It does the same effect, but obviously you need this card face up, so it's just having more chances to get the card you need to do the burn damage. And then running 3 Swift Scarecrow, I feel like it's definitely nice to have a card like this. You could run Battle Fader if you want. I like Swift Scarecrow because we kind of want our opponent to go for direct attacks for some of the other stuff we're trying to do. So it's just kind of a debate depending on what you're doing. We're also running 2 Messenger of Peace, a very nice stall card, probably one of the better stall cards in the game. Just keeping our opponent from doing stuff, which is very nice for us. They're going to have to kind of choose between destroying a bunch of the other continuous cards we do have. 1 Day of Peace, I feel like 1 Day of Peace is very valuable for a deck like this. Just, do your burn damage, set things up, do 1 Day of Peace, get your cards, get your setup just to do what you need very easily. I find that it's very, very useful for that, especially in a deck like this that needs to get draw power to get its cards as quickly as possible. And then 3 Pot of Duality, not really much special summoning in this deck, just a limited amount. Again, we need those cards, so easy to run 3 Pot of Duality in this deck. Great for consistency. And then Snatch Steal. Obviously everyone's running Snatch Steal now, but this is actually a really good card for this deck in particular because we're going to steal an opponent's monster. We don't really need the monster, but our opponent's going to keep losing life points as we keep the monster. So I think it's a really cool card for this deck type that just has some really interesting applications. And then 2 Soul Taker, more of a situational card, but can be very useful to, again, trigger that life points. Upstart Goblin, invaluable in this deck. Run 3 of this in any Nurse deck. Very obvious. And then for the traps, 3 Bad Reaction to Simochi, obviously the key card to the deck, same as Nurse. 1 Dark Cure. This is a nice card, but our opponent can kind of find ways around it. They'll kind of see it and they'll know what's going to happen. So I don't like to run too many of this. I think 1 is a good amount for this deck type. Then we're running 2-dimensional wall. Really nice for Lava Golem. Our opponent's going to want to attack with Lava Golem or get rid of it. If they do attack, they'll be taking 3,000 damage. So it's going to be very, very good. You don't want to run Magic Cylinder usually because people can find ways around it. Dimensional Wall, it's very hard to find ways around it. So very powerful card in this deck type. And then the 3 really massive burn cards that we have, Gift Card, Paths of Destiny, and Try and Guess. Try and Guess is the newer one. Very powerful card. Basically, you just declare an extra deck monster, and as long as your opponent has more of those cards, they're going to have to gain a huge amount of life points. This is a really interesting card because you can set up your extra deck in a way where you could gain more life points or you can make them lose life points. It really depends on what your extra deck build looks like and what cards they're running, what deck you're running up against. I'm just trying to make them lose life points, so I'm running 1 XYZ and just setting things up that way, but there's a lot of different things that you could do to set this card up and just do a bunch of really, really interesting stuff. So as I was saying, my extra deck is going to be pretty empty because of Try and Guess and what we're trying to do. 1 Gagaga Cowboy, obviously a burn card that can help you out. You could run more XYZs. Every XYZ you run kind of sets up, it limits your ability depending on what type of deck they have. Like let's say they have a deck that runs only 2 XYZs and you're running 3, you might really mess up what you're trying to do. So you really have to think about that, but it's not a huge deal to run more if you know that their deck might be composed of more monsters. It really is just depending on what you're trying to do. And maybe you want to gain the life points. It's just all situational depending on what you're building around and how you want to do it. I'm focusing, as fast on the burn as possible, and really, no matter what deck I come up against, I'll be fine with just one Gagaga Cowboy. I can choose whatever type, and I should be pretty fine in getting that burn damage off. So now for the side deck, if you haven't seen a video of mine before, in the side deck I kind of just talk about other recommended cards, other ideas for the deck. Not really a side deck for matches, just other things maybe I've run in the past or just could be good with this deck. Ill Omen would be good if you want to search out Simochi, just another consistency card. It's up to you if you want to run it. Battle Fader, like I was saying before. Marshmallon, I feel like Marshmallon is just too situational. There's so much destruction nowadays, so I don't like to run this, but it still can be an okay card for this deck. MST, if you think things are going to get in the way, not really a big deal for this deck, but still can be useful. Raigeki Dark Hole, you can run all that stuff. It's just not what this deck is trying to do. It's focusing on the burn. Reign of Mercy is another consistency card. It's up to you whether you want to run this. I feel like you want better things like Upstart and Soul Taker that'll give you a little more power. Wave Motion Cannon, another continuous card that can do a lot of burn damage. It's up to you. Dark Bribe. Dark Bribe is really for MST if you feel like they're going to MST Simochi. Same thing with Judgment of Anubis. This can be a very powerful card to do burn damage and to hit MST. So it's up to you depending on what you're going for. I'm not focusing too much on countering their spell and traps, but it's up to you again. Additionally, you could run more burn cards to support this deck, just like I'm running Dimension Wall. You could run Just Desert, Ojama Trio, Secret Barrel, all that burn stuff you can run if you want to do that. You can turn this deck into more of like a burn variation with like anti-heal stuff. That's just not the route I'm going, but it totally works in this deck type, and you can do that to just gain an additional burn damage that isn't reliant on those other cards. So it's kind of cool there. And of course other stall cards, Threatening Roar, Wabaku, all that stuff. And like I was saying, you could run more XYZs. If you run more level 1s, you could run like Simochi Soldier, which can give you draw power, and it can also do burn damage with this deck type, or Slacker Magician to stall, or a huge amount of other XYZs that could be powerful for this deck type. Again, not really what I'm going for because of how I set up Try and Guess, but the options are there if you want to do that. So that's my bad reaction to Simochi deck. Still a very fun deck, even though I know a lot of people don't like burn type decks, but it seems like it's a lot more consistent now because Gift Card is basically 6 cards now. It can set up what you need to do very, very easily. It's very, very quick if you do get that right hand combination, which is why we have a lot of consistency cards. If they don't get rid of bad reaction, or if they don't get rid of Nurse, and you start drawing these traps, they're going to be destroyed within seconds. And you can do OTKs, and you can do huge damage over and over again. So as long as you can limit what they're doing, get out those cards fast, it's going to be a very quick match, and that's kind of how this deck works. It's kind of hit or miss depending on whether they can destroy those cards that are key to your deck, and if they can't, it's going to be very bad for them. But if you guys have your own Simochi anti-heal deck, let me know in the comments. You could talk about what cards you use. Maybe you guys can make some suggestions for me. But that's about it for me. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.